Council members, thank you for joining us for the Budget and Finance Committee meeting of January 24th, 2025. Mayor Sullivan is unable to be here, so she is an excused absence. She typically serves as chair of this committee, I believe. So we're going to need to have you select a chair. Additionally, Councilmember Althauser indicated that he would be a few minutes late, but he was going to be attending. So on the astute advice of our city attorney, we're going to just kind of wait here for the next few minutes until Councilmember Althauser is able to arrive. So we'll wait to start the actual meeting until then. Does that sound acceptable?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll keep my camera on and my audio on in case we have anybody from the public who shows up. We can indicate to them what's happening. So doesn't look like we have any attendees at the moment. So just our panelists. Welcome, Councilmember Althauser.
Hi there. Apologies for being late. Whenever there's stuff during the day, I have to go home first and then log in. So sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So we are recorded, we are recording. The mayor is unable to attend, and since she is normally the chair, the first order of business is to have the three of you decide who will be chair for this meeting. And then I would also like to propose to the committee, we have a guest who is here to discuss the financial analysis, the financial planning project briefing, which is farther down on the agenda, and I would like consideration of being able to move that to the top of the agenda to keep his time, to be respectful of his time. So I think if there is somebody who would like to volunteer or volunteer to nominate a chair for today, that would be great.
Well, I would volunteer to nominate Eileen.
Oh, I was gonna volunteer you, dude.
Me too.
What do you
Sorry,
say,
Peter, you're
Peter?
out of the loop.
I volunteered the latecomer for chair today.
Eileen, do you mind rising to the occasion and helping shepherd us through?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, well, you usually end up helping me out and piping in, so no worries. So how do we do this?
So I think if you want, Karen, do we need an actual motion for the chair, or are we okay to move forward with concurrence and consensus?
I think you're good to move forward if Eileen's okay with being chair. Absolutely.
Yes, I accept the role for today.
Awesome. Well, then it is a matter of starting down the agenda, and I think the first thing would be to confirm if you're okay moving the sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of my nose yet. I will get that.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, let's go ahead. I've got it up. So we're looking at the reviews, agenda item number 5, review scope of work for financial planning consultant.
Yes.
All right. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll hear from our consultant.
Yeah, so I'm
Morgan.
gonna introduce you, Morgan. So this is just kind of setting the stage and then turning it over to Morgan. This is the financial planning that we've been talking about through our budgeting process this last year. It's a very important project for the city of Tumwater. It's also part of a bigger, it's one cog in a bigger wheel that we're looking at in terms of updating the city's strategic planning and strategic plan and priorities and goals, which is coming up. It's important in terms of the community survey work that we want to do. My plan today is to review the scope of work with you. It was included in your packet. See if you have any questions, but I also have invited Morgan Shook. He is with Eco Northwest. That's the consulting firm that's been selected to do this work. And what I was hoping Morgan would do is I wanted him to introduce himself to you. So you generally understand who he is and what his background is. And Morgan, if you could also kind of generally talk about similar projects. I know we've talked about it. I believe it was the city of Covington, but other types of projects where you've helped cities understand financial planning and budgeting and looking long term, particularly as we are all struggling through our financial challenges. So turn it over to you, Morgan.
Well, thank you very much, council members, for having me here, and actually, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to work with you and take that very seriously on this project. So, just a little bit about ECHO. We're a 50-year-old economics finance firm. We do lots of different things. We won't detail them all, but I'll tell you a little bit about my practice. Here, I'm a director and one of the owners of the company. So, I'm actually was a biochemist by training. I worked in biotech for a number of years in Seattle, and then kind of gravitated towards the world of public policy just from a personal interest. But I approach every project as an analyst, I think, at heart. And over the years, I've had the real world provide constraints on that analyst to try to give clients a lot of sort of practical guidance and solutions. And so that's kind of a little bit about my background and kind of approach to these projects. So there are probably 5 things in the sort of financial world that I do work with cities on. One is this cost of service. They want to look at, need to provide police service. Like, what does it mean to provide it ourselves, to look at a contract, to do some sort of hybrid thing? And so here we work with staff and other sort of public safety professionals, but we really work on the backside to say, like, well, what are the kind of the financial implications of these kinds of different choices one makes on the financial services side? We do a lot of work on the revenue side in the terms of forecasting. So we run the Puget Sound Regional Council's long-range revenue forecast model. So we do a lot of economic forecasting that kind of helps kind of sit back in that sort of space of like, well, what might the next quarter or the next 10 years look like? And there are different kinds of ways to approach that. But that then leads into, I think, the large body of work we do with governments in revenue strategies. And so we are kind of, I'm expert here in the state of Washington and state and local government finance in terms of tax policy, but particularly for cities, right, trying to, for them, because they have so much more latitude as well as constraints on the revenue side, there are different kind of concerns with respect to like, what's the optimal tax policy in terms of like, will it actually get us the revenue we need? What does it really mean on the burden we're placing on taxpayers? Is that equitable? Is that fair? Is it resilient? We want to always ask these kinds of questions. And the other big piece of work we do is in infrastructure funding and finance, because infrastructure is so important, but also very unique in terms of how we handle that in the public sector. We work with governments to look at sort of general purpose as well as restricted and special legislatively enabled tools to look at sort of infrastructure funding. That all comes together in lots of different kinds of projects. And I think the one here that you will have us for is in kind of these big picture scenario tools. And here we're really offering kind of 2 pieces of our expertise. The first one is like, and I think we're really thinking of ourselves as support to both Lisa and Troy and the city here, and as well as the council members, to build you a tool. And I think the way Lisa and Troy has expressed it, the council desires, some good evidence, right, and good data so they can make better and informed choices. And so that starts with us building an analytic tool that represents the city as it works today as a financial enterprise, and then allows us to ask a bunch of different what if questions. What if we expanded service like this in this time frame? What would be the impact on the city's bottom line? Does it necessitate us thinking about revenue strategies that either we could enact councilmanically, or do we need to engage the voters? And what are the implications of these kinds of choices? And so when we do these kinds of big financial strategies, that's the first part, is really we're working collaboratively with your senior staff to build a tool that they feel like represents the reality of the city, but then also allows us to ask a set of what if questions. And this tool, I think, is to be handed off. And whenever we've built these things, we give them to as part of our contract to the city. And as far as I know, all of the cities that we've used these stuff, they still use these things in helping kind of them do kind of annual long-term planning. Like, what's the next 10 years look like when we kind of think about, COLA increases or, potential adding staff to address sort of needs. So it allows you to kind of take a look at sort of those long-term pieces, because I think, as you guys know, as council members, right, there are a variety of real structural issues with respect to how we deliver services in the state of Washington, as well as the revenue tools you have available, that just mean that they don't always just line up, even if you just did nothing, right? And so we're always in a position of trying to say, well, the no action has us out of business in 10 years. Like, how do we sort of adjust these things, both on the revenue side as well as the cost side? And so this tool then, I think, is then meant to be an engagement device, both to engage departments as well as your senior leadership into understanding what it means to deliver robust and effective services for the residents of the city of Tumwater, both today and going forward. and to think about the implications of that. And so this part, I think, is the more interesting thing, where we have much more engagement both with city leadership as well as the council to make sure that we are embedding your questions, right? So what, like, I'm sure everybody has, well, what if it was like this? Or I have an concern around this issue. Can we look at these kinds of things? And so this is the more interesting part, where we are able to then develop a lot of different kinds of scenarios. And the reason we do scenario planning with jurisdiction is because ultimately, when we add up all those scenarios, nothing ever is kind of a silver bullet, right? There's no sort of revealed answer and all that, but it then leads us to a part where councils on us to say, help us think through the prioritization. Like, what if we did this, then this, then this, or we have these competing demands? Can we move with option A, or what are the implications of moving with option A without doing option B, or do we need to do them both concurrently? So it allows you to see that play out so that you can be well informed as you make choices to engage your constituents, as well as to make decisions both on the current and future budgets. And so, so that's a little bit about sort of how we've done this in the past, and particularly what we're actually proposing to do here. And so we are doing a comprehensive review of your budget. We are making a tool for Troy and his finance staff, as well as Lisa, that sort of represents kind of like, well, how do we think about the current expenses? What do we think about those expenses going in the future? What does it mean then to engage department heads to say, well, what do you need to deliver effective services? We can load those things in. We can think about the revenue environment, given your tax bases and your current tax policy, understand kind of what choices you have within that, and then what choices you would need to have to engage voters, and then start an engagement process with the council. And I think, as Lisa has articulated to me, that you guys have some things on your agenda going forward in terms of thinking about sort of some of the long-term service issues, or shorter and longer term service issues in the city that you would like to see embedded in this process. And so at some point, once we kind of build that sort of architecture to answer questions, we're moving into that engagement with you. And then we would expect a series of milestones where we can sort of feedback and bring you information in a way that's comprehensive and synced to your calendars. So I'll pause. That's just a lot in terms of a little bit about us, about what we're doing here, and happy to take any questions or advice you have as we begin this process.
Councilmember Althauser, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm also curious about the scope in terms of when we talk about revenue, there's different types of revenue, right? There's taxes, there's fees, there's grants, but there's also, like organic revenue sources that are the result of economic development, permitting fees, things like that. We've talked a lot in the past about how like housing is critically important to every community. We're no different. We need to build 5,000 units of housing over the next 15 years in order to meet our goals, which like to me is mind boggling. We have 6,500 units of housing in the city. We need to build 5,000 more. And it took us 150 years to build that first 6,500. Now we have 10% of that time to like double it practically.
Yep.
And housing is not economic development. It's critical for economic development. It is not economic development because the roads that are associated with it have to be maintained. Sometimes they have to be widened. We need to do stormwater and so on and so forth. So I guess I'm sort of curious where the nexus is with this work and things like planning and land use and policy, to where like we have some land in the city that is not developed that can be an economic driver for the future that our bottom line will also very much depend on. And so does this also look at like, yeah, these other communities have also implemented these land use policies that have resulted in economic development that has helped them be better positioned for the future? Or are we mostly looking at internal side dynamics of things like efficiencies and regional whatevers and taxes and things like that?
No, I think this is a great question. I think you articulately understand the relationship of things that happen in the tax space relative to way Washington structures tax policy. The property tax, right, has the 1% limit, but you're allowed to exceed it with new construction. The the construction activity is taxable as a retail event, right? Makes up for most cities a 3 out of every $10 of sales tax revenue on average. And so these are really important kinds of events that are tied to, development or economic growth. So so the way we've handled this and our approach here is actually born out of answering this question. Most times when we're advising this, it's usually when cities are contemplating annexation. Like, hey, we've got this big area of land that sits in our potential annexation area. It's still very rural, but we're hearing things that it might, there's more demand for housing or commercial activity. Should we annex? And then using our policies around housing, land development, well, is that going to change the tax base, right? Depending on sort of how big, how extensive, how fast those things happen, right? It changes not just the things on the cost side, right? Like, oh, well, gosh, we're going to need a new service patrol district and police. That means we got to hire 5 new police officers, right? And then what's happening on the revenue side? So the short answer to your question is yes. Like, this tool is set up to answer those questions and scenarios. We could just say, like, if you're thinking about organic growth, like, well, what, right, historically, like you said, we've grown at, like, say 3% a year in terms of our sales tax on construction. But what if we make policies that make it, just a simple thing that says it's at 5%, right? And that we have more individuals, so we can maybe expect a little more bumping up in certain kinds of cost categories. But we also know we're going to get more revenue. And so to me, that's really about getting a very specific question and designing a scenario that helps you understand how these two things may change.
I think I'm going to add to that just a little bit by saying absolutely the comprehensive plan work and the direction that is provided in the comp plan is directly connected to what we're going to be doing in terms of financial planning and our strategic planning work. Morgan, I actually first met Morgan many years ago in the context of land use planning, GMA comprehensive planning, specifically around capital facilities elements. And so Morgan is an AICP planner. So he, in addition to what's it, biochemical engineering, something like that.
Yeah, I'm a planner by profession, but yeah, I kind of like to chase interesting questions.
Yeah. So he definitely has a good understanding of how land use connects with finances and priorities, budget priorities, and those types of things for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if there were other questions for Morgan, that's great. Please hop in. I just kind of wanted to run briefly through the scope and give you sort of a general timeline of what we're thinking. The first task in Morgan's scope is a project kickoff meeting. That's actually going to happen next Wednesday at our management team meeting, and plus or minus some time on either side of that. So this is kicking off in earnest. We actually had been hoping we could get it kicked off in December. That didn't quite happen, but we're going to move forward quickly. Task 2 is really talking about that budget assessment and the financial analysis. What we'd like to do is have that done, or at least in good final draft form, before we go out for our community survey. Because in the community survey, there may be questions we'll want to ask that help us understand our community's appetite for some of the potential alternatives that we have, whether it's revenue generation or service priority questions. We want to make sure that our community survey is going to help us answer some questions that are going to come out of this. And then I think the bulk of Morgan's real technical work is going to be this long-term developing the fiscal modeling tool. And the beauty of that is it's going to be we don't have to try and incorporate it into ERP or anything like that. It's going to be, right, Morgan? Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no proprietary software. We're going to be able to really develop this robust tool so that we can take all of the information that Morgan develops and identifies, the information from the community survey, and bring that information to the council in retreats type format, probably mid-year, and start having conversations, doing perhaps even applying the tool and testing some scenarios. And being able to talk about strategic recommendations with the council as we're moving towards updating the strategic goals and priorities. That the strategic priorities and goals, as I understood it, the 6 primary priorities, as John Doan explained it to me, those are generally 6-year priorities. And then each year and each budget session, we kind of update the specific goals underneath. And we're at the point where it's time to update that bigger document. That's timely because of the comp plan updates, and it's timely in terms of this work and the survey work. And the goal is really to create the framework and some tools and some systems that really help the council make well-informed, technically solid, fiscally responsible decisions about priorities moving forward. So when we ask you to make hard decisions like we need to add 67 people to our ranks, we can tell you why, we can tell you how it's going to be paid for, and we can help you to have a system in place and some clarity in place about how we move forward with some of those really difficult public policy and financial decisions.
Michael.
Thanks. I was just gonna say, one of the things I'm hopeful for this tool is, we hear a lot whenever we have budget problems, like we did in December when we were grappling with some of the revenue increases we did through fees and the utility tax. We hear a lot from folks about, well, you really need to work on efficiencies. And that sort of becomes, I think that sometimes that becomes an easier thing to say and not necessarily based in reality in terms of what we've done to already accomplish that and what little else there is to do. So to the degree that we can have a process that demonstrates that we have turned over every stone, this is what we did in a report form, and you can sort of see transparently what we've done. I think that would be a helpful tool and be able to demonstrate, like, we have done the due diligence and continue to do the due diligence of being responsible stewards of funds. So that's kind of the other thing I'm hopeful for, is like to make sure that we can articulate, like, yeah, we have looked at these things, because that gives us credibility when we make the case for, like, we have done a hard look and these are the options we have that are viable, that keep our city afloat and also keep helping people in the ways that our constituents expect us to.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, council member. And I believe that that would be our goal. And I see efficiencies in a couple of ways. There's some technical, day-to-day operational efficiencies that we absolutely can either identify that we have we've done as much as we can with as little additional as possible, right? We can definitely look at those sort of operational efficiencies, sorry. I also feel like there are some policy level decisions and scenarios that we can run by you in terms of, are there efficiencies in, regionalizing or partnering or those types of things, right? So in what ways can we maybe not try to be everything to our community, do everything with, do everything and not do anything, 100% well, but are there other partners or other policy decisions that could be made about how to gain efficiencies? And so I think we'll bottom line, we'll identify the operational efficiencies that we've employed and that may still remain, but we'll also be likely coming to you for your guidance on potential efficiencies that are more at a policy level. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'll say one of the things we've done in the past is, like, the question of contract. Should we provide this ourselves, right? in direct service provision? Should we contract? Should we just not be in the business? I mean, those are questions that councils asked, given, whatever the, service, X, Y, or Z. So, and that could just be like, well, what are we talking about as potential options and offering kind of different levels or efficiencies of service?
Great.
And I have to agree with that too. I was thinking about having that perhaps when we were approaching the RFA, just having a little bit more data that way to be able to present to the community, how this, how they could have been, the benefits of adopting that. So, and I also remember the comp plan from 10 years ago, just needing to add more stores and things like that. And so I think this will give us more concrete data rather than just, okay, we need to add more stores or something so we can build our sales tax revenue. So I appreciate having this toolkit. So this will be great. So.
Okay, well, I didn't have anything further. If you have anything, Morgan, did you want to say last closing bits and pieces or?
Can I ask a process?
We're excited. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So will there be a briefing of the council, or is there a contract we'll vote on, or what is sort of the next step after this?
Yeah, so this is this contract, the dollar amount is within the delegated signing authority of the mayor and myself. So the contract is in place. We're going to get going on this. We do want to bring this to the full council at some point in time. I think we'll figure out with Morgan and the management team when that seems to make the most sense. I would expect that would be fairly early in the process, very much for sure before we go out with the community survey. I would see some input and a briefing, but happy to take any thoughts that you all might have about that timing as well. So,
yeah, I would say before the community survey, in case there is feedback from council members that could inform the community survey if there are strong feelings about that. I think that would make sense. Apologies for interrupting you, Mark.
No, I was just gonna say, we're looking forward to starting. We're starting next week, and so part of the first process is we have kind of a typical sort of schedule, but once we kind of dive in the first kind of month and get smart, we kind of try to revise it. As sort of Lisa said, like, when does it make sense to come to council? You have these other processes of engagement, both with the community and then your own sort of like strategic planning. And then we try to figure out how to sync it up as we kind of get smart with what we think the questions are and key issues. So, but I would expect Lisa will keep you informed, and I look forward to chatting with you all and then the whole council.
Oh, Lisa, in view of that, I don't know if this is something, would it be appropriate way to communicate it is like do the Friday update, just like updating that we, budget finance met and, just, I'm not sure if that would be the way to do it. You guys decide, but I just thought maybe that would hit everybody and just kind of keep up with what's been going on that week during the city.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. I'll try to remember to do that this afternoon. If I don't get it done this afternoon, I'll for sure do it next week. Especially we will have the video link for this meeting uploaded at least by then. So I can do the mention this update and the Friday update, and they can I can even attach the scope of work as well. So
sounds good. All right, so we're moving on to the next item on the agenda. All right, well, thank you, Morgan. So we are on to agenda item number that talks about the pass-through of credit card fees, and take it away, Troy.
Thank you, everybody. Wonderful to see you on a Friday. Okay, so as we implement the ERP system, one of the options that we have is going with the Tyler Technologies payment system. We use Tyler Cashiering. Tyler Technologies is the vendor that sells us the software that we're using and that we're implementing. And kind of our mantra throughout the implementation of this system is let's use the system to its fullest capability. Let's not do things like we did in our old system where we do workarounds or where we kind of fight the system to fit current business practices into a new system. And so we're trying to take full advantage of the technology that we're purchasing and spending all this time implementing. And so part of that is the Tyler payment system, which is kind of like the credit card machines that we use at the front counter for people to pay credit cards online at the counter, building permits, all that kind of stuff. So as we started working through that, the Tyler system is a little bit more expensive than what we pay now for credit card merchant fees. When we kind of asked about that, they said, "Oh, well, the vendor said, you should be passing these on to your customers. You guys shouldn't be absorbing these fees." And that kind of started the conversation of what that would look like and if we should do that. And so we're bringing this to you just to kind of talk through some pros and cons and I think get some direction. So currently we absorb all credit card fees that people pay, whether that's for permits or utilities or whatever the payment is. And it costs us about $250,000 a year just for the utilities. And so in essence, that cost just gets absorbed into the utility rates, and all customers kind of end up paying for those fees in the rates eventually. So our thinking was or is that it would be more fair and equitable to only charge, well, to pass along the fees. And that way only the people using the credit cards are paying for the fees. And so say, for example, the lowest income people who might be paying with cash or a check or a debit aren't charged those fees. And in essence, they're paying a little bit less for their utility bill. We feel like that's probably more equitable and fair. Lost my train of thought there real quick. So let me jump over. So that's on the utility side. Let me jump over to the community development side of things with the building permits and fees and things like that. We absorb those fees also. And because we put a cap of $1,500 on what someone can charge on a credit card. A lot of the building permit fees are much, much higher than that. And a lot of the contractors really want to pay with credit cards because they have a Cabela's Visa that gets them points, or a Costco Visa or something like that, where they get rewards for using their credit card. But we, by and large, don't let them because we don't want to absorb 3.5% credit card fees on a $20,000 building permit. And so starting to charge fees on the development side of the house is actually a pretty easy decision because we think that would make our customers really happy. And of course, if they don't want to pay the fee, they can just continue to pay by check like they do now. So that one seems kind of like a slam dunk to us. But of course, so go back to the utility side, a little less of a slam dunk because it is a big change. And so we have a lot of ways to pay. And in the new system, we're going to have even more ways to pay. So, right now someone can come in person, they can pay by cash, check, or credit card. They can pay online with a credit card or debit card. In the new system, they'll have what they call an e-check. And I don't know the technical pieces of it, but it's a way for them to pay from their bank account. And it only costs $1. And we're thinking on that one, we would probably just absorb that fee and not pass that to the customer. And then there's another way also, and I'm forgetting the name of it. But anyway, in addition to cash or check, there's other ways people can pay online that don't cost them anything at all. And so our thinking is we could save that $250,000 a year. People have options. We're not forcing anyone to pay a credit card fee. They have several options to pay, and we just feel it would be more equitable and fair amongst our customers, and especially the lower income customers. And so I'll pause there for any questions.
I want to say you might be thinking about auto pay, and when customers sign up for auto pay, we wouldn't necessarily pass any fees on to them because they can use their bank account for auto pay or they can use a credit card.
Thank you for that, Shelley.
I was just gonna ask that because I have mine on auto pay. So every time I pay through my credit card, I try to cost the city 3 to 3.5% then? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and I think, it doesn't sound like much, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
jump
but it
in.
adds up. So that's the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, three to
It's
3.5%.
convenient, but it adds up. So,
That's just on the credit card, right? So there still are digital online ways to pay that don't create that level of impact. But as Troy said, $250,000, that's an expense that we're budgeting, and that budget then impacts the overall rates that we charge.
mhm.
And so, the people who don't have the luxury of being able to get a credit card are essentially subsidizing that opportunity for others. And so we wanted to take a look at this. It makes a lot of sense. It will definitely, if the decision is made to make this change, it will take some messaging so that we make sure people understand, what their options are and their alternatives are to paying that credit card fee. But we just wanted to make sure that we were bringing that to you all, and I'm not sure technically exactly how Karen can help in terms of how a decision is made, to do this. Is it administrative and operational decision, or is it something that requires action on the part of the council? I don't know the answer to that. Karen can hop in, but we wanted to make sure that we were briefing you on this so that there was some understanding on your part, at least initially, why we're considering doing this.
Yes, it would be an administrative function, but I think it's definitely one of those policy, things that rises to the level of, consideration by the council in prior to staff moving forward.
Right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
like,
Karen.
we'll hear about it, so,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Inevitable.
Yeah, we will.
So
So-
I think having a public discussion is warranted in a,
Yeah.
with more than just the three of us.
And
Yes.
Troy, you talk about 6 different ways. There are different ways through the Tyler system. Is that what you're saying? There's different. I'd want to see like the breakdown of, if you pay this way, how much it costs. So before we, I would like to see those numbers. But, and then, so Tyler's the one that is the one that we have, not that we are using. So this is, okay. So it's not like that we've invested quite a bit of money into this system using Tyler Technologies, correct? Is that?
Well, Tyler Technologies is the vendor for the Munis system that we're implementing, or
Okay,
also called ERP. So
okay,
whatever we decide on the credit card fees, we do plan on implementing their software for the cashiering and the credit card swipes and things like that. The difference will be, do we continue to absorb those costs, which will be a little bit more than we're paying right now, or do we pass those on to the customer?
well, and that's unfortunate that their fees are higher than like another vendor would be. I mean, how do they justify that? So.
Well, it's we're projecting that it'll be a little bit higher, and we're thinking in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $12,000. So it's not it all adds up. It's all
Right.
But it's not like the fees are doubling. But it also depends on what method of payment is used. So on a credit card itself, they tack on it their own little. I mean, we still have to pay the Visa merchant and the MasterCard merchant and things like that. But then we also pay a small percentage to Tyler Technologies for the use of their technology. And the advantages that gives us is it makes it easier when we reconcile the tills at the end of the day. It makes the reporting easier, the deposits. And so there's an economic benefit to us for that, to have an integrated system that works hopefully flawlessly with the rest of the software. And so depending on the type of payment, so a straight credit card payment is the most expensive, but like an e-check, I mentioned, and actually I think I said that was an online option. I believe that's an in-person option too. So that's a smaller fee of only $1, which is probably, you know, on an average utility bill is probably only 0.5% or so. And so some of the fees are smaller, some of the fees are a little bit bigger. We're projecting based on current usage that if we absorb the fees, they would be a little bit higher for us.
Well, and then we went to encouraging people to pay online because of the cost of mailing out statements. And so what did that look like compared to, you know, what was that savings? How much were we paying to mail out bills, and how much do we'd still mail out bills, correct?
We do. We still mail out quite a few. I think we pay, well, if I try to guess the number, I think I'll get it wrong. But we do still pay a decent amount in postage, and that was one of our first hesitations when this came up. You know, we've for years we've been encouraging people to pay online and get e-statements and all these things. And are we going to discourage online payments if we start passing on the credit card fees? And we don't fully know the answer to that, but we would have to see.
Yeah.
Michael. Oh, go ahead, Lisa. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that, you know, we're still encouraging people to pay online, and we're still offering them, we will still offer them options for doing that don't incur the credit card fee, right? Credit card fees begin with the credit card companies, right? They're charging that fee.
Right.
So the reason, you know, I'm guessing that the reason Tyler Technologies is a little bit higher is because they're tacking on a little bit of admin, you know. It takes a lot of admin time to transfer money digitally from one to the other, evidently, although it seems a little sort of backwards. It seems to me it should be cheaper, right, to digitally exchange money. But those credit card fees, I think, Troy, you could correct me if I'm wrong here, please do. The credit card fees start with the credit card company.
Right, of course, yes.
So, yeah, so it's like, we want people to pay online. We want to continue to encourage them to get their bills online, and we still want to give them an option for doing all those things that doesn't cost them any money, any pass-through fees. But if you're going to choose the convenience of a credit card, then, you know, we would like to pass along that larger fee. And there are utilities that do that. I mean, I do that, right? I know that I pay some of my bills online with a credit card, and you know, the credit card fee is passed through. So it's going to be a choice. We're giving people choices, I guess, and not mandates.
Michael.
Have we considered, I don't think we do this currently, correct me if I'm wrong, but have we considered an incentive program for like it's within everyone's best interest that it be linked to the bank account because that's cheaper. That's cheaper for us, it's cheaper for the consumer. We considered like a sign up for depositing it directly from your bank account will give you a $5 credit on your bill. That would be equivalent to like 1.5 months of credit card fees for the water bill, and then it's better for both of us. And then it's less of a hit for people who otherwise haven't signed up but continue to use it.
Like through a debit card? Is that what you're talking about?
When you use the credit card fee, right, that's the 3 to 3.5% or whatever. But if you sign up to link it to the bank account, that's a $1 flat charge, like where you use a routing number and account number, if I understand the briefing correctly. So if we want people to convert, like maybe we should incentivize them to convert and offer like a $5 credit on your water bill if you convert to this deposit method, which saves you money and saves us money.
That's an excellent suggestion. I at least hadn't thought of that. I don't know if someone else had, but if they have, they hadn't told me yet. We have done $5 incentives to sign up for e-bills.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Like that's when I signed up for an e-bill. I signed up for an e-bill. You get like for student loans, it's like 0.25% off the interest rate if you sign up for e-bills. And that's why people sign up, because you can save a little money. It seems like that would help everyone. It would pay for itself in a month and a half if people otherwise wouldn't be signing up.
Yes, and if you do the online payment where you enter your bank account information directly, there's actually no fee for that.
Oh yeah, well, then, yeah.
That one's completely free and would be great to do it.
those are definitely all things that we can certainly look at in if and when the decision is made to move forward with this. I think we're wanting to try and move this forward, I think, fairly quickly. So you know, if you're we absolutely can take it to the full council and just sort of give them an update and maybe break it down a little bit in terms of a PowerPoint that shows Eileen kind of the answers to some of the things that you were asking about in terms of what are the alternatives, how much they cost, which ones are we going to pay for, which ones are we going to pass. So.
And I
Yeah,
don't
I
mean to be all, oh, go ahead, Michael.
I think people are gonna wanna hear that, cause we'll hear about it, right?
For
Yeah.
sure. After doing, yeah, the race this year, so yeah.
Yeah.
My only nerdiness or paranoia is just you're having your bank account information access to in the city, and you know, my gosh, things you think are safe are getting hacked, you know. So so that's my only worry is, you know, at least credit cards you can cancel, but God, if they have a direct, you know, line to your checking account, then that makes me worried. So yeah. Oh, Shelley's up. Okay, Shelley.
We currently allow that. So we have customers who sign up for auto pay are not using a credit card, but are using their bank account information.
Okay.
So that's nothing new. Our ways of payment aren't changing necessarily. It's the fees that are involved in it. And the main reason is because it's all the same things we're currently offering. We're just not doing it through Tyler Technologies. So it's moving to their payment platform. And so there's the credit card fees from Visa, MasterCard, Discover. And then there's a third-party merchant service company, which is typically a bank or something like that. We have that now. That piece is typically negotiable. And that's how we've been able to try and keep our costs down a little bit. I just renegotiated that a couple of years ago and cut some of our fees in half.
Yeah.
But Tyler is its own merchant service company. And so they would be taking that over. And so their fees are, they're not as negotiable as they have been like with banks previously. So the way people are paying isn't changing. It's just us deciding. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One-
I know when you make donations on, like when you make donations, sometimes or you buy a ticket online or something or I was just thinking, anyway, just, if you make a donation, sometimes they'll ask you if you'll pay for the $3.25 fee. So I don't know, how that works, but often people will pay that just to help because they want to get their full donation but I don't know if that would probably work with us, so.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to ask Tyler about that and how
Yeah.
Tyler Payments works because it's a new program to us too. I
Mhm.
will say we've had an unofficial kind of questionnaire where we've asked some people, particularly the information came from, and Troy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he knows this as well, but from community development, it's the contractors that are actually asking for this.
Mhm.
Or have asked for this over the years because they have no problems. They're like, I'm willing to pay the fees if you just let me use my card. Otherwise, they have to go back and they can be out of town and they have to go back and have a check and then come, written and then come back because they don't always know what the fees are right away. And it's really inconvenient for them. And so the majority from what I've heard is that they particularly would be willing to pay those fees for the convenience of being able to use their credit card.
Yeah, and with that also, if we were to decide that we wanted to do it for community development, pass the fees, but we decided we didn't want to do it for utilities, that's an option for us. We can split those and we can have either or both. And I remembered one more thing related to those fees and why Tyler is a little bit more expensive. Tyler does not charge us monthly for the software. And
Okay.
instead, it's those extra little fees that they tack on is how they make their money instead of charging us the monthly and annual fees for that piece of the software.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. All right. Do we have any more questions for Troy on this item? Oh, Peter, go ahead.
So, Troy, your last statement there, in comparison to the fee that they will have charged the city for the software compared to how much they would charge an average utility payer, how does that compare?
We think it's gonna cost us about an extra $10,000 to $12,000 a year compared to what we're paying now. So we're paying about $250,000 a year now for those credit card and merchant fees. And under the Tyler Technologies program, we would pay about an extra 10 or 12,000. So it'd be up to about 260 to 262,000.
I think Troy. what
So
you-
I guess what I was asking was, I did a quick back of the envelope calculation. I pay my utility bills online with the credit card. So I figure about what, $3, maybe $4 at most. And then for Tyler not having us pay for the software every year, I know it's probably too difficult to break down the unit. I don't suppose that the city is actually having a good option by not paying them by not paying for the software yearly, unless, of course, there are some additional services that they provide, like updates and so on and so forth, that's included in that. So I guess the question is there any benefit to them not charging the city beside those costs?
But we have the option. I don't know that we have the option to have them charge us a monthly subscription fee versus the collecting these credit card fees. That may not even be an option for us. But I think, I think what I heard the question is, what's the difference? Okay, if we're collecting these fees and they're going to Tyler, how does that compare to what it might be if we were paying for the software on a monthly basis? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, Lisa is correct on that. That's not we don't get to choose which one we want. That's for this piece of software, that's just their business model. That's how they make their money.
So I'm trying to see how we are going to get the average Tumwater residents to buy in. Given what we have done within the past 6 months, we have upped the rates. We have a tax a measure going to the resident. It just seems like and then we talk about the property tax. It just seems like if you were, I know we are all residents in Tumwater and we all pay all these taxes. But we are involved in the system. But if you take yourself out of the system, and if you come up the street, and if somebody is telling you all of these things, how would you feel? That's where I'm coming from. It seems like we are just asking, pay. So there needs to be some kind of a way to soften others' blow.
Yeah, and I think I totally appreciate that, and that's been sort of our conversation around this. And that's why we've been very clear that if we do pass through this fee, there still is an option for people to pay online and digitally that doesn't cost that fee, right? And I think, and the other message, which is similar to the message around the TBD, that the TBD is a way for all people who use the roads to contribute, not just the people in the city of Tumwater who live in the city of Tumwater to pay for the roads. This is really a user fee right now, and we're covering that user fee to the tune of $250,000 a year just for utilities. And that cost gets spread out to everybody who isn't using that option. So, right, the lowering, I'll make some assumptions. people who do not have the resources in order to be able to have a credit card are paying higher rates because we're choosing to cover a cost associated with somebody who has the option
Yeah.
to use a credit card.
Yeah.
And we have to incorporate that cost of business into the rate
Mhm.
schedule.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's one way of many to pay your bill. It costs some money for it's a convenience fee. And instead of the city utility covering that convenience fee to the tune of $250,000 a year, we would like to pass that along to the people who are choosing to use that. And
Lisa, I understand what you're saying, but what you just said is not how we're going to sell this. See, that does not sound compassionate. All that does is where you're the user, you chose this, so you have to pay. Given now, in addition to that, you have all this other pay. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
If I am saying this and I have no business paying it, but I'm just saying it to when people ask me, like my neighbor down here, is forever complaining about us paying income tax in Washington. We don't have income tax. I have tried to tell him that we don't have income tax. Are you talking about sales tax? No. So people get confused with all of this, and then they start making all those assumption in their head that we are just here to make them pay. So we are going to have to find a way that is more humane, that is more genteel in trying to tell them, hey, look, this is costing us this amount of money per year, and you have options, but we're not going to say you're the user, you chose to do this, that's why you're doing this. No, that's not going to work.
well, we will develop a message campaign around this, and there will be people who will not understand and who will choose not to understand. But the message really is, you have multiple options to pay your utility bills at the city of Tumwater. If you choose this one, it will cost you some money. If you choose this one, you could still do it online, right? You still have to pay your credit card bill from a bank account, right? So you could still choose to do that if you want to pay the fee. There is still a method by which you can make an electronic digital payment to the city of Tumwater that does not cost you that fee. And basically you're taking the middleman, the credit card company, out of the transaction. Right? You're making a direct payment to the city of Tumwater instead of going through the credit card company and paying the fee to have them in between us. So we will, your point is well taken though, Peter. And we very much understand the challenge in terms of messaging. And we, that will be a robust component of implementation if and or when we decide to move forward with this.
Yeah, I look forward to the breakdown of the options. So just when you present it to us, so at least we have numbers we can talk about. So that'll be good. So
yeah, and we'll make sure we incorporate our specific communication strategy and rollout strategy for that too, for sure.
All right. Okay, so do we have any other questions on this item? Okay, so our next one, we have the Utility Assistance Program update.
Okay. So this one is pretty cool and have some exciting news for all of you. And this is an item that we will also bring to the full council, but we wanted to start here with the Budget and Finance Committee. So when we implemented the increased utility tax, or when we discussed that and voted on that late last year, one of the things council wanted us to do is look into assistance programs and how can we help people, and we let you know that we would indeed do that. And our staff have done some some good analytical work and come up with a list of 294 people who may qualify for the Lifeline program. And as a reminder, the Lifeline program is where they can get 50% off their utility bill due to their income status. And so I did some quick calculations on that, just assuming an average utility bill of about $143. And there's a budgetary impact to that, as you might imagine, with nearly 300 people. So that would, if all those people did indeed qualify, and if they all signed up, that would reduce our utility revenue by $21,021 per month, or $252,000 a year. That's, that's an outstanding thing for those who qualify and can benefit from that assistance. And but we wanted and part of the reason to bring it to the Budget and Finance Committee is is unfortunately a budgetary impact for water, sewer, and stormwater that they didn't plan on. When we started this process, we can just kind of off the top of our heads and rationally say, we know there's more people out there that qualify that could be using this program, but we had no idea how many. And in my mind, I'm thinking, maybe we'll find 20 or 30 people that should take advantage of this. And so to find potentially 294 was a surprise. But if they do indeed qualify, then they deserve it, and should take advantage of it.
Hey Troy, those are people, I'm sorry, but those are people who actually are property owners that qualify for reduced tax? So that's not even counting renters?
That's correct. And this is, the Lifeline program follows the same criteria as Thurston County for their property tax relief programs. And so if someone qualifies for the reduced property tax through the county, they are considered automatically eligible for the utility Lifeline rate.
And that's the 290 some people that you're talking about, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So those are individual homes, or could they be, could an owner of a home be passing these costs on to their renters? Or I'm just wondering, so is it just single family homes that we're looking at?
It's people who pay property taxes.
Property taxes, okay, duh,
In-
okay, sorry,
Into the city of Tumwater. So yes, and yes.
okay.
Yeah, I suppose that's a really good question. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, my assumption was it's probably single family homeowners, but it could be someone who owns a duplex or a fourplex who pays property tax to the county. You would think if they own duplexes or fourplexes, they wouldn't be low income, but you never know. That's not for me to judge or.
Yeah, because they probably make their tenants pay their own water bills, maybe, I don't know, how's that work, so. No, it doesn't, does it? Because they're
I
individual
think-
customers, okay, got it.
I think that that is dependent, like, you can rent an apartment, or you can rent a place that, your rent includes water, sewer, garbage.
Yeah.
So I don't think we could say one way or another. I think the point really is that we've identified a way in which we could potentially, we committed to doing an extended outreach to our community to make people aware of this available program. We are going to do that. We had staff people who took it to heart and helped, come up with a potential process for doing that. We just wanted to, in the spirit of full transparency, we want to do those things, and it has a budgetary impact. So,
So it sounds like we need to work on those credit card fees, because it's gonna be a wash.
It was kind of an amazing coincidence.
Oh, man.
It's gonna cost us this much,
Wow.
but we could save money over here.
Yeah, like, ha, 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 okay. Whack-a-mole, so, sorry.
that's what it feels like sometimes.
Well, I have to say, the Principals Emergency Fund, I was looking at where the money went for the month of December. And there were 2 families at schools that we paid over $300 for each family for their utilities. And so that's where, you know, even our own programs, that's utilities and housing is where we're seeing our Tumwater school kids, you know, the families there, that's where the need is so great. So as to be able to help them there. So anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's about all we had on that topic. We just wanted to inform you and let you know that depending on how things go in the Water Resources and Sustainability Department, you know, Dan may have to come back at one of the budget amendments and say, I need some more money. But that was an exciting find to see that so many people potentially qualified.
Well, appreciate the work that went into all that to do all that research. So thank you to staff for looking into that. So appreciate that a lot. Really
Yeah,
helped
and I
us get an idea of our community and a snapshot of our community, because we didn't have any idea how many were out there. So that really is a good snapshot.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other piece of this too is we committed to also evaluating our program overall, right? So we're still evaluating the overall program and applicability, but that's being handled more under the Carollo cost of service analysis that's happening. So you've got kind of 2 parallel and interconnected tracks, but so like here is information about our existing program as it currently exists. And that will actually also then help inform sort of what our potential options are on the other side of looking at the different program alternatives for utility payment assistance in the context of the cost of service analysis that Carollo is doing, which also, if you recall, includes, and Eileen, you probably do because you're specifically on Public Works, that specifically is looking at not just cost of service, but there's an equity component and an affordability component to that. So so that will all be interwoven on that side of things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know that there was like a GIS tool that we saw once that Tacoma uses that is able to target like different areas, and so they have a better grasp of you know where their community lies on, you know, different issues, as you know, for education to utilities to everything. So I just nerding out on that. It's really good information to have. I remember Council Member Kathy asking once, you know, like where are our low income areas type of thing, you know, and we don't, you know, they're intermixed, you know, it's not, they're everywhere, you know. So if we can find 292 people, they don't live all in one area, on one street. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, this is it. I don't think, do we have anything else for the good of the order here? All right.
Not unless you have any questions.
Okay. Are we good, guys? Okay. Everybody want to go back to work? Ha ha. Okay. Ha ha ha. Good luck with that. All right. So with that, I will call the Friday, January 24th, 2025 Tumwater Budget and Finance Committee meeting adjourned. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.